I watched them standing in the backyard, next to Mom's rose bushes, holding my lottery check above a lighter like it was a cursed scroll. Dad struck the flame. Mom's voice rang out, syrupy and smug. "If you don't share with your sister, you don't deserve a single cent." And then they lit it. My name is Nina Carter. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever watched the people who raised you burn your blessing just to make sure it didn't shine without them? They stood there, watching the flames curl around the edges. The numbers $2, 500, 000, turning to ash. Mom looked at me like she'd won. Dad folded his arms like he'd taught me a lesson. And I burst out laughing. Tears streamed down my face. Not from sorrow, from relief. Because the check they burned was fake. A novelty print. Something I'd ordered from Etsy for pictures and giggles. The real check, already deposited. The funds? Split between a high-yield account, a trust, and an attorney who knows exactly who they are. See, the night I won the lottery, I told no one. Except my sister Mia. Not the favorite daughter who used to shove me aside at Christmas. Not the golden child who never lifted a finger but somehow always got the first plate. My sister. The one they call ungrateful because she moved out and stopped letting them control her. We made a plan. And when I showed our parents the prop check just to prove it, they went full dragon. "You owe us," Mom hissed. "It's only fair your sister gets half," Dad added. They weren't asking. They were threatening. So I gave them a stage. Watched them set fire to their own manipulation. And when they realized the check turned to ash. But I didn't flinch. They panicked. "You think this is funny?" Dad shouted. "You'll regret this." I stepped back. Calm. "I regret ever thinking you'd be happy for me. Because they thought the money changed me. But it didn't. It just exposed them." The next morning they were on my porch. Not yelling this time. They came with fake smiles and fresh-baked lies. Mom held a tin of cookies. Dad had that fake concerned voice on like a dusty old suit. "We overreacted, sweetheart," she said. "It was the shock," he added. "We just want what's best for the family." Family. That word. The one they only use when there's something to take. I didn't invite them in. Just stood in the doorway, arms crossed. "You tried to burn my future over your favorite child. Why would you think that earns you cookies and a second chance?" They exchanged glances. The kind they used to give when grounding me together. Like they were united generals, and I was just another foot soldier. Dad's voice dropped. "She needs it more than you. You're single. No kids. You don't need millions to be happy." I almost laughed. "So the price of your daughter's love is a womb and a husband?" Mom tried to reach out. "You've always been the strong one. The smart one. We just assumed you'd do the right thing." And that's when I knew. They'd never loved me for me. Only for how well I performed. How much I gave. How easily I disappeared behind my sister's spotlight. So I gave them one last gift. Clarity. You didn't lose a daughter when you burned that check. You lost the one person who still gave you the benefit of the doubt. You don't get to decide what I need. And you don't get another cent. Mom's face cracked. Dad's jaw clenched. "You're making a mistake," he said. "You'll be alone." I smiled. "No, I'll be free." Then I closed the door. And for the first time in years, I locked it without guilt. Because family that puts a price tag on your love was never worth the cost. 2 days later, the doorbell rang. I checked the camera. It was her. The golden one. The real daughter. The son they revolved around. Lauren. Wearing tears like accessories. Carrying a tote bag that probably cost more than my first car. And behind her, like two shadows clinging to her light. Mom and Dad. I opened the door just wide enough. Lauren stepped forward, rehearsed and soft-spoken. "Hey, I didn't know they'd do that. I was just surprised. I thought we were close." Close? I remembered every Christmas she forgot to get me a gift. Every time she got caught cheating on her tests, and I was told not to show off my grades. Every moment I was told to understand that she just needed more. "You didn't know they'd burn my check?" I asked. Her eyes flickered. I thought maybe they were bluffing. And what if they weren't? She shifted. They're just scared. You have so much now. You could change all of our lives. I already did, I said. I changed mine. That's the only life I owe. Mom stepped in, voice trembling. We're just asking you to share, honey. That's what good daughters do. I tilted my head. Did you ever ask Lauren to share her college fund with me? Or her car? Or your love? Silence. Because they all knew the answer. I leaned in. You didn't come here to reconnect. You came to cash out. But the bank's closed. And the daughter you ignored for 30 years? She doesn't owe you interest. Dad muttered. We raised you. I met his stare. You raised me to serve her, not to be me. Lauren whispered. So that's it? I nodded. That's freedom. I closed the door again, this time slower, not out of anger, but peace. And inside, I poured a glass of wine, logged into my account, watched the numbers that weren't burned, and smiled. Because what I'd finally set on fire was their access. When they realized I wasn't going to fold, they did what people like them always do. They tried to control the story. It started with a Facebook post from my mother. A photo of Lauren holding a baby that wasn't even hers. Caption. Some people forget the meaning of family when money's involved. We're heartbroken but still praying for our daughter to come back to her senses. The comments came in fast. Left speech bubble. Prayers up, mama. Left speech bubble. So sad when money poisons love. Left speech bubble. She'll regret turning her back on you. They crafted a tale of betrayal, of a greedy, selfish daughter who refused to help her struggling family. They didn't mention the check they tried to burn. They didn't mention how they tried to threaten me into giving Lauren half. But I stayed silent. Because silence in the hands of the prepared is strategy. Until Mia called.
She's doing interviews, she said.
Local radio. Telling people you've cut ties because of jealousy. Because you never felt loved. I could have clapped back. I could have gone full firestorm. Instead, I sent one email. To a journalist I knew. With photos. Voice memos. And a signed statement from my attorney confirming the incident with a fake check. A week later, the Betrayal story dropped. Lottery winner outs family's greed. How a burned check exposed the price of blood. It went viral. People who called me selfish were suddenly deleting comments. My mom shut down her page. Lauren posted something about healing privately. Even the church they attended released a statement. We do not condone coercion or emotional abuse masked as family values. Their social world?
Gone.
Their reputation?
Ash.
I didn't celebrate. Not loudly anyway. I just sat on my patio, a mug of coffee in one hand, and the knowledge that truth doesn't always have to scream. Sometimes it just waits. Because they tried to burn what they could never own. And all they did was prove I was right to walk away. It came in a manila envelope. Hand-delivered. Professional, heavy, stupid. Inside, a letter from their lawyer. Cold. Formal. Demanding. Due to your recent financial windfall, our clients, your parents and sister, believe they are entitled to equitable compensation under implied familial support obligations. Implied. Familial. Support. I laughed so hard. I had to sit down. They didn't support me when I worked 2 jobs to pay rent. Didn't support me when Lauren crashed my car and I took the blame. Didn't support me when I almost dropped out of college because they forgot to co-sign my student loan. Now, they wanted legal compensation. For the bare minimum they never even gave? I handed the letter to my attorney, Angela. She smiled, crisp and calm. I've already drafted the response, she said. 1 sentence. And it was perfect. There exists no legal, moral, or financial obligation between my client and individuals who attempted to destroy her personal property and manipulate her autonomy through coercion and fraud. Angela mailed it, certified. Then we both raised glasses of ginger ale and toasted to boundaries in bold print. They tried to call after that.
Blocked.
Tried to show up. Security footage caught them at the gate. But you can't scream your way into someone's peace. Not when they've built walls with every betrayal you handed them. The part that burned them most? I didn't fight with fire. I fought with facts.
Paper.
Policy.
Distance.
They tried to own my story. So, I wrote a new one. And the ink dried on something they'll never get to erase. I don't owe you anything. Not love. Not money. Not memory. And while they tried to rewrite the rules, I rewrote my life. It was Lauren who cracked first. Of course it was. She posted a selfie, crying in a car, mascara running like a confession. Caption: I just wanted my sister to love me again. This isn't about money. This is about family falling apart. A guilt grenade wrapped in faux vulnerability. The comments were split. Left speech bubble: you deserve forgiveness. Left speech bubble: but you burned her check. Left speech bubble: you literally tried to take half. Sit down. Even pity can't survive the truth for long. But the one that hit me? From someone I didn't know. Left speech bubble: the real ones never need to go online to prove their heart. They just heal and do better. I put down my phone, stared out my window, and I realized this wasn't war anymore. It was weather. They were trying to storm their way back in.
I just had to stay dry.
Later that week, Mia sent me a screenshot. A GoFundMe, created by my parents. Title: Help us recover from family betrayal. Goal: $50,000. They wrote, we supported our daughter her whole life. Now she's rich and heartless. We just want a chance to rebuild. Rebuild what? The narrative? The control? Their access? It raised $311. Half of that from someone named Aunt Judy, who once called me a mistake they shouldn't have kept. I didn't flinch. I didn't comment. I didn't even send it to my lawyer. Because some battles are already won when you've healed too far to be baited. Instead, I forwarded it to my financial planner. Subject line: reminder. Increase donation to the women's shelter this quarter. Because if anyone was getting a piece of this blessing, it was going to be women like me. The discarded. The underestimated. The ones who learned the difference between obligation and ownership. They broke themselves trying to break me. And all I had to do was walk away and mean it. It was a legal form, just one page. A signature at the bottom. But it meant everything. I wasn't just cutting ties emotionally. I was erasing their stamp from my identity. I changed my last name. Not for marriage. Not for aesthetics. But because carrying theirs felt like dragging chains I never agreed to wear. I chose Reed. Simple.
Clean.
The name of my great-grandmother. The only woman in our family who ever stood up for herself. And paid the price in silence. But I wouldn't be silent. Not anymore. The name change hearing was fast. The judge barely glanced up. But when he said, from this day forward, you shall be known as Nina Reed, it echoed through me like thunder. That same afternoon, I updated everything. Bank accounts, business licenses, property deeds. The last thing I changed? My emergency contact. No longer Mom. Now it's Mia. Because blood didn't show up for me. But she did. Every time. I sent Mia a photo of my new ID. She replied, speech balloon, it looks good on you. Free fits your face. That weekend, I held a dinner. Just 10 people. All chosen. None inherited. We laughed so hard we cried. A different kind of family. One built, not born. Someone clinked their glass and said, to Nina Reed, who broke the chain and walked out holding her own damn key. I stood up and said only this. I am not their lesson. I am my own legacy. The next day, they tried to call again. Blocked number. Voicemail. We heard what you did. You're not even one of us anymore. I smiled. Deleted it. Because finally, they were right. The final act wasn't dramatic. No cameras. No confrontations. Just me, standing outside a courthouse with a check in hand, made out to a scholarship fund for first-gen college girls with broken beginnings and impossible dreams. I donated $250,000 under my new name, Nina Reed, not to prove anything, but to plant seeds where fire once lived. Because if they were going to try to burn my future, then I was going to water someone else's. A week later, the foundation sent me thank you letters.
Typed.
Printed. But one stood out, handwritten in purple ink, shaky letters. I thought no one like me would ever get a chance. Now I can breathe. Thank you for making room for someone like me. I cried in my car for the first time in months. Not out of grief, but release. I didn't need revenge. I didn't need them to say sorry. I needed this. Proof that my healing didn't just protect me, it expanded into something bigger. That same day, I finally listed the old family house for sale. The one I'd quietly inherited after years of unpaid taxes and ignored paperwork. They had no idea I owned it, but I did. I paid it off behind the scenes, and now I sold it.
Clean. Fast. Gone.
The last memory of them, emptied with a signature. I didn't tell them, didn't warn. They found out through a foreclosure notice taped to the front porch. Mia texted me a photo of it. Underneath, she wrote, "Speech balloon, poetic, huh?" But I didn't need poetry anymore. Just peace. I took the last sip of my coffee that night, stepped onto my balcony, and whispered to the wind, "I don't hate you. I just outgrew the box you tried to lock me in. You burned a check. I built a life." And that's the part they'll never understand. I didn't win because of the money. I won because I never went back.